Hello everybody, how are all of you doing? Welcome back as always to Rule of Two Review, and today is pretty crazy because it may be pretty early. However, I want to discuss a little bit of Nintendo and E3. So yes, it is very early to be talking about E3, but it's hard not to get excited when you know it's semi around the corner, and it's a super exciting time, not only in the gaming world as always, but of course in the Nintendo world because of the Nintendo Switch having just launched. Now, I have a pretty good amount of E3 related and E3 hype videos and some E3 lists and stuff that I have planned for the build-up of E3. This is going into the third or fourth E3 since I started the channel, and it's become a tradition for me to make a couple of videos that kind of lead us into that hype, and last year was very successful. Everyone was super into all of the content before E3 that I was putting out, which I was very appreciative of, and it was a lot of fun to do. So I do have that stuff planned, but I'm thinking that's going to be more late April, if not maybe the beginning or throughout the month of May. But I did want to make this one super early video because this conversation came up a little bit recently, and it's just an important time to talk about how this is going to play out. So the gist of what I'm getting at when discussing Nintendo at E3 2017 is, as per usual, how is Nintendo going to present themselves and their content and their new products to us? And that's been a conversation ever since the first time they elected not to have an in-person live press conference in 2013, and they did their first Nintendo Direct at E3, and then the year since, 2 years after that, they then did what they called a digital event, and then of course last year, they basically did nothing but a treehouse. So we've seen a lot of different formats coming from Nintendo throughout their history at E3, from the live press conferences to the Nintendo Direct to the digital event to the treehouse and different combinations. And so every year it's like, okay, well this year, what is Nintendo going to do? And I've already been thinking about this and knowing that it was going to be something I would talk about eventually, probably during the month of May. But, you know, a couple of days ago on Twitter, a good friend of mine and an awesome channel you guys no doubt already know and hopefully follow, OJ, who runs Player Essence, awesome dude, great channel. We had a conversation, just a couple of tweets back and forth, discussing our sort of ideas of how we want it all to play out. And OJ is somebody who very much wants and prefers to see a digital event, something that's like a pre-put together, pre-recorded package, like they've pretty much mostly done the last few years, except for really the treehouse last year in 2016. And there are many people who feel that way, and I think that that's great. I was kind of defending the idea that I would sort of like to see them do the live press conference. I've said that for pretty much every year since they stopped doing that. I miss the idea of the live press conference, but of course, I love the digital events too. I love the Nintendo Directs that happen throughout the year, and I do think the treehouse in and of itself is a great aside and complement to E3 content. Last year is kind of a different story because I half loved and half didn't love how they did it, but we got Zelda, so it was really still great, and so it all worked out. But the point is, through that conversation and a couple of, chats that we had back and forth, OJ and I on Twitter and a couple of other people as well, I was like, maybe I should just dive into this and really think about how I want to present the video and just discuss it on Rule of Two Review, so that's what I'm doing today. So there's really two questions when we think about this, is what will Nintendo do and what should Nintendo do? And of course, they're not the same thing, you guys. And also, they're definitely, at least this one, the what should they do, is definitely opinion-based. And, we're all just a bunch of armchair internet businessmen. We all think we know, businessmen and women, we all think we know what the best move and the best product and the best decision for every company we like or hate is. And it's kind of silly and ridiculous when you think about it, but as fans, it's fun to speculate. And that's all I'm doing today, is giving my own personal perspective and speculation and my own desire. So the digital event and the live press conference. Here's the thing, here's the ultimate thing, you guys. Without question, I like them both. I love, like I was just saying, digital events and Nintendo Directs. They are one of the greatest things that Nintendo does. I think it sets a standard and a precedence within the industry. I think they've shown how successful it is. I think it helps Nintendo further carve out their identity as somebody new and innovative and creative and always trying to think outside the box. And they're delivering content directly to us, the gamer, and specifically the Nintendo fan. It is one of the best qualities Nintendo has. I never want it to go away. I always enjoy it, even if it's at E3. And through that, I would be absolutely happy and satisfied if they chose to go that route at E3 again. Which, by the way, I do think they will probably do. Without question, the signs point to them doing that again. But, that being said, I can't sit here and pretend like I don't also love a live press conference. And I love it when Nintendo does a live press conference at any time. More often than not, we see this at E3. And when they're good. Now, the argument against live press conferences is a very good one, and that is that a lot of times, no matter what company you're talking about, not just Nintendo, when you're looking at a live press conference, whether it's at E3, Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, EA, Ubisoft, whoever, whether it's something kind of awkward and unsuccessful like Sony's PS4 Pro reveal event business meeting thing, so many times, more than half of the time, absolutely, I will admit, they're sometimes kind of awkward, which is really a unique thing when you stop and think about it. Because E3 is always exciting, and we always get excited to watch these press conferences, but more often than not, if you go back the last 10 or 15 years, we're left kind of unsatisfied or unexcited or unfulfilled. Like, that just happens, and they're sometimes awkward, or there's mistakes on stage, or a presenter who's speaking at that time might not be very good. Maybe they're very nervous. It makes for weird tension. Sometimes a game that they expect to be a big announcement sort of falls flat. We saw the Microsoft thing happen, the DRM thing when they first showed off the Xbox One. There's a larger percentage and a higher possibility of something going wrong or the live press conference just not being a hit and not going over well. Sadly, those are just the numbers, and that is why that defense has merit and why I absolutely accept the truth of that. For me, when I look at Nintendo, who's notoriously had many bad press conferences, it's when I think about the handful of times they've had great press conferences. 3 or 4 kind of jump to mind initially, including 2004, which I love to remind people I did attend E3 in 2004, and it was fan-freaking-tastic, by the way, the year of the GameCube. Yes, they've had those bad ones, but there are those times where it turns out great. And it's those times where it turns out great that I think the risk and the gamble of having a live press conference pays off. And I also think it shows that a company, Nintendo or otherwise, has to be confident enough to be willing to take the stage and to be willing to take the gamble and to be willing to say, we can't do this. This is what I want from Nintendo right now. This new Nintendo, I like to think of them as, this Nintendo that just launched a brand new product. They are working so hard to dig themselves out of the hole of what the Wii U created. As much as I love the Wii U, it got them into a hole. They're working so hard to get themselves out with this awesome machine and this awesome device that so far is selling fantastically and most people love it. Even with only a couple of games, it's doing very well, and they want to continue this momentum. So when I think about that company saying, okay, we got to go live, we have to be confident enough to stand in front of the world, to stand in front of a room of our peers in the media, and say, this is who we are, this is our products and our presentation, look at how great it is, and deliver it with confidence and conviction. That's a very important thing to be able to do, and Nintendo has bypassed doing that for a couple of years. And I think that you have to be able to say, we can't mess this up. We can't have a bad press conference. And so it's a bigger challenge to achieve the success of a live press conference. And when you achieve it, you've overcome something that could be very damaging. And you've kind of, like, I hate to make it sound all cheesy and epic, it's just a press conference, but you kind of have to walk through the fire, so to speak, to make yourself look and appear and be actually strong. And so that's all a bunch of really big words and, like, very dynamic, hardcore themes I'm talking about. But I think that when you attach it to, like, the business decision to go live or not, that's what I think about, is, like, coming from a company who's elected not to do it, I should say. That's what I think about. Sony and Microsoft and the other guys, they're so used to that, and they've never so far shown us that they're willing to not go live. They probably don't think of it in such way. For Nintendo, I think those really heavy themes I discussed kind of does represent what they have to think about if they're going to think about going on stage. And so, bringing it back to simpler terms, that's why I just like the idea of a live press conference. When it goes well, it's fantastic and exciting. It makes the people in the room jump and cheer, which makes you on your couch or in front of your TV want to jump and cheer. And I think that's great. That's a feeling that I associate with E3 going back the last 10 or 15 years since I've been following it and since it's been a thing. And so I want to see my favorite company also do the same thing because it's been a while since we've seen them do it. Now, something else that was brought up on Twitter, I can't remember if this was OJ or one or two other people who chimed in, that said, look at the way the Tokyo event thing happened. The thing that, which, by the way, I predicted was going to be awkward and kind of not exciting and sort of business-minded and just whatever. And it's like, well, that really wasn't a hit, which, again, obviously I knew that was going to be that way. And using that as an example, which is true. Obviously, I agree with that because I expected it beforehand and it turned out to be what I thought. I still liked it, but it wasn't an E3 kind of thing. But that's the exact reason why I think that's not a fair comparison. That was never really, truly billed as an E3 sort of extravagant thing. And myself and the other people who saw through the messaging understood, okay, this isn't going to be that. And so there was no reason to expect it. That was meant to be what it was. A little bit boring, a little bit dry. It was a Japanese audience in Japanese language to the business people and investors. It wasn't to the E3 gaming audience. So at E3, I think that a different Nintendo would take the stage if they decided to do it. That being said, in bringing this whole thing back around, I will remind you guys, I absolutely would love if they did a digital event as well. There's really nothing Nintendo wouldn't do that would bother me or make me unhappy, provided the games and the content are quality. You know, and on the same tip, let's not forget, we've seen unquality Nintendo Directs or digital events as well. Really, I mean, the 2015 was not good at all. 2016 was not good, you know, and that's because the content wasn't there and the delivery didn't quite feel the same. So it's not like a digital event or a Nintendo Direct can't fall flat as well. Every time a Nintendo Direct comes out, look at how many people downplay it and talk poorly about it, even when it's just a random one for 20 minutes about 3DS games or whatever. There's just as much of a chance a pre-put together package doesn't go well. Really, it's only gone spectacularly well kind of twice. I was going to say once, but there was like the January 2013 one was great, Nintendo Direct. And then, of course, the digital event at E3 2014. Those are the only times they've been a slam dunk hit that everyone loved. Those presentations are criticized sometimes just as often as a live press conference. I mean, tell me I'm wrong. Look at the reactions every time a Nintendo Direct or an E3 digital event has happened. There's a lot of people talking bad about them. So, point is, I'm happy to accept the digital event. I'll be happy no matter what. I just want good games and content from Nintendo. The delivery method doesn't super matter, even though I've spent 11 or 12 minutes talking to you about it. If the content's good, that's always going to make the difference. However, I will also say, if I had to put money on it, I do think it's going to be a digital event. I would love the press conference. There are rumors about them renting an auditorium. There's a little bit of a rumble talking about, is Nintendo going to come back on stage at E3 this year? So maybe it's going to happen, but I wouldn't put my money on it. You know, as much as I would like to see it, I don't expect it. So I'm not having delusions of grandeur here. At the end of the day, Nintendo's going to do a digital event like they always have. They're going to do the Treehouse like they always have. And if the games are good and the Switch is blowing people away with all the new content, awesome. I think we'll all be satisfied and happy. I know that I will be satisfied and happy, but how will you guys feel? What do you think about this whole concept? What do you think Nintendo should do? And what do you think they will do? Again, remember guys, those don't have to be the exact same thing. You know, part of it's your opinion. What is it that you would like to see Nintendo do? I expect a lot of people to say, I don't care about press conferences, don't ever do them again. I expect a lot of people to say, I think it's smart, I love the live press conferences, I hope that they come back. Everyone's going to have a different opinion, and that's totally okay. I just really enjoyed having a reason to talk to you guys about this. So that's it for today. So I will, of course, say thanks as always for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of Two Review, and I will catch you all next time on another video.